Today I'm going to do something in this video about Exert that may not have been done before. I'm going to demonstrate how you can look at maximum power available with an overlay of that graphic in the context of a race video. And so I'm going to explain what MPA is, I'm going to explain how you can use it in a race, and in the context of this race we're going to watch a demonstration of what your MPA would show while you are racing. So what is Exert? In brief, this is the second video I've done. Exert is a kind of training system, something that would compete with Training Peaks, Trainer Road, and other things. But Exert is unique in a number of ways. I've done an introductory video that explains a little bit about how one might look at Exert and what kind of features it has. I'll put a link to that in the bottom in the description. But for this video, we're going to focus on one aspect of Exert, and that is the use of something called maximum power available, or MPA. So in this video, if you ignore the line on the bottom, the purple line, we're going to focus on the top line at the top bar, the blue line, or the light blue line, and specifically on the top left where you see that graphic MPA, and right now it says 1240. So 1240 is my maximum power available. So what is maximum power available? In the Exert system, the maximum power available is the power you have available at any particular moment while you are riding. So for me, that's the maximum amount of power I can put out over about 5 seconds. And over time, as I burn matches, as I dig into my suitcase of courage, so to speak, that number will start to go down. And so for this video, just to highlight what we're going to do, I took about a 50-minute race and I've reduced it to about 35 minutes. And I'm going to talk about me making a breakaway, being in the breakaway, what the MPA is going to do in both of those settings, me getting dropped from the breakaway, and then a few minutes of catching on with the chasers, and then finally a sprint finish. So we're going to see how the MPA changes over time as we go through this video. So let me give you some brief background about this particular race and myself. I'm a masters racer. I just started racing last year in 2017 as a Cat 5, and I did about 14 crits in 2017. So some of those days were 2 crits in one day, so I raced about 10 times on 10 days in 2017. This year I did a lot more racing. So in 2017 I became a Cat 4, and then this year in 2018 I did a lot more races, crits, and I catted up to a 3, and again, like I said, I'm a masters racer. So in this particular A race in Richardson, Texas, I've gotten in the top 5 twice. So this is the Cat 1, 2, 3 race. So I'm not really a challenger to win this. I mean, no one thinks I'm a challenger to win this. No one in this race thinks I have any shot of winning this, including me. But I might be able to be in the mix a little bit based on my fitness. In other words, there's a fair chance I might end up in the top 10, but there's almost no chance. There's zero chance I will end up winning. And there's an outlandishly small chance that I would end up on the podium. Anyway, so that gives you a little bit of background about this particular race. So we've been through one lap. I think we're now on the second lap. If you look up in the top left, that number, the MPA number, has started to go down. So why is it going down? Why is it below 1240? Well, that means that I've dug into my reserves. I've gone above threshold. And now the maximum power available to me at any particular moment has fallen from when I'm completely at rest. So let's talk a little bit more about that concept. If you use Golden Cheetah or other kinds of metrics, they may talk about a concept called W prime. So W prime is the idea that above threshold, we have a certain amount of energy available to us. That energy can be used up in a number of different ways. So for example, we could use up all that energy in one sprint, like a 200-meter sprint. Or we could use that energy on more of a slowly being on the front, pacing, speed, like we're trying to catch on, slowly bridge to a breakaway, for example. That would be slowly using your energy. The analogy that I would use, it's kind of like a sink of water and there's a drain to it. So when we are below our FTP, that sink is full for the most part. Um, Obviously, if you were just sub FTP or doing that kind of effort for a long time, that number would probably go down in terms of the amount of water in your bucket, but in your sink rather. And so when we are above our FTP, so let's say we go above FTP, that sink starts to drain. However, when we rest, when we go below our FTP, we are freewheeling, we are going easy, the sink starts to fill up. And of course, that's what you feel when you're on a hard ride or in a race situation. When you put in efforts, you don't have as much energy left. When you rest, you start to regain energy. And so, that's why you try to recover in a race if you can after you've made hard efforts. So, in terms of this race, you can see that my MPA has fallen. I'm in a terrible position right now in the race. I've been in the back the whole time. I'm in horrible position to respond to any breakaway attempts at this point. The wind, right now I'm going into a headwind, so this is we're headed south now. This direction is south. And as we turn left here, I'll be headed east. And we'll be in a bit of a crosswind as we turn east. So right now I'm in, there's 3 guys behind me. Everyone else is ahead of me. I've got a teammate. My teammates are in orange, the orange bibs. One teammate just right here in front of me. So as I'm in this race, I'm thinking, gosh, I'm in a bad position. This is not good. There are a couple of really strong, more than a couple of really strong riders, but in particular, there are a couple of strong riders, Cat 1s, on a particular team, Cadence, and I'll point them out later. They're guys that would be heavily favored to win this race based on what everyone knows to be their ability. So, as I said before, and so you can see that there's a group of 4 that are off the front, and everyone is chasing at this point, including a teammate of mine who's chasing to catch this group here. So in just a little bit, we're going to look and see what happens when I actually make the breakaway, which is surprising to me. I didn't plan to make the breakaway, it just kind of happened. And, it is really getting strung out at this point. So I'm digging down a little bit. Now you may wonder, why are the power numbers different on the bottom and the top? It's because I think there's a different kind of averaging that's used for, in other words, the power that you see in the purple line, which you should ignore, it's correct, but it's instantaneous power, and I believe the power that Exert provides in their data is an averaging of the power, maybe 3-second power, so it's a little slightly different, but don't pay attention to that. So again, you can see that I'm off the back. Well, we're chasing. I'm in a group that is chasing, and there's a group ahead of us. And of course, those of you that have done crit racing know that this kind of thing can happen all the time, where you are chasing in a group, and maybe you catch on, maybe you don't, maybe you try to bridge up. I still am feeling fairly strong here. I've not gotten myself into the wind. My maximum power available is over 1100 watts. And I'm not feeling comfortable, but I am not the one who's burning matches here trying to catch on to the group ahead. I'm being patient and letting other people do the work. And of course, that's something that one has to consider in racing, in when one puts down efforts and when one does not put down efforts. So, in terms of my individual strategy, which I didn't really have one, this is working out for me in that our group is catching back on. So I didn't have any sort of there would have been nothing discussed on the team in terms of team tactics. I mean, I have a general idea of some tactics for the team. For example, our guy that's done the best probably in the A crits this year at this location is a guy named John, and I may point him out here. He's further up ahead of the road with me. Okay, so here I go. There's been acceleration, and I'm on the wheel of a rival team, and he is doing the work for me to bridge up. And so the guys behind me, they could be done and dusted. They're way back there, and I'm just following this wheel. And when you're on a good wheel and you're following it, why not just keep following it? So these guys have slowed down on my right, and I'm like, what the heck? I'll just follow this wheel. And And there is, let's see, one or two riders ahead of us, and I'm just on his wheel. There are two riders behind me. The rider who is directly behind me is probably the favorite, well, no doubt, in my mind at least, the favorite to win this race prior to the race being started. This is the guy that you would want to mark if you wanted to win this race. And he has a teammate right there on the right who was up ahead on the road. And so now we have a gap. And what has my MPA done here? It has fallen. It has gone down to 1,000, but I'm still not in the red. Now let's talk about how you can use MPA. You say, hey, it's fine to watch MPA on this video, but what about on the road? Well, the cool thing about Exert, and I should have mentioned this earlier, is that you can actually look at your MPA in real time as you're racing as one of the fields on your Garmin, and you can add this through Connect IQ, and it will, on the fly, tell you what your maximum power available is at any particular time. So this could be a little bit like heart rate. Your heart rate gives you some information in real time about how you feel. The other kind of thing is perceived effort. How do you feel in terms of your biology, like if you didn't have any electronics to look at. Now, one thing we'll note here is that my heart rate there, the 164 right now, for me, that is very high. I don't have a particularly high heart rate. I think the highest I've seen my heart rate in the last 3 years or so is about 173, 175. And rarely have I ever do I ever go over 170. So me being at 165 is a very difficult effort for me. So that number falling for me, MPA now below 1,000, this means that I am definitely feeling it. I am in the red. I am not feeling great. The way that one interprets the MPA number, I think, will probably vary from racer to racer. So, for example, I have a fellow racer who uses Exert on the fly, on his bike, on his Garmin while he's racing. And he said that the metric he uses is the number 600. He knows he is in trouble if that number is around 600, that he cannot, he's at high risk for getting dropped or not being able to respond. When my number is 600, I'm beyond trouble. I am in desperate straits. I am very close to complete exhaustion if my number is at 600. So this number going down for me, 900, is not a state of feeling particularly great. So that would be something that you would work out over time with experience, knowing how to interpret this number, this MPA number, while you're racing. And what is the advantage of having that MPA number in front of you? Well, it tells you what you have left in your sink, how much water you have, how much energy you have in the bank. So we haven't really talked about, well, I think I talked about it in the earlier video, but not in this video yet, which is the concept of the Exert fitness signature. So MPA is only one part of that signature. The other part, well, there are three parts. One is your maximum power, so that's your peak power. Not MPA, it's your peak power, how much power you can do over 5 seconds. The second thing is your threshold power, your FTP. And the last thing is what they call the HIE, which is your high intensity energy. So that's really the sink. That's how much water you have in the sink. That's how much you can go above your threshold and expend that energy to attack and to respond to attacks. To go above threshold in a race. So that is used to determine what your MPA is in any particular moment while you're riding your bike, whether it's in a race or a group ride or what. So here we are, we're all working together at this point. I am not really feeling good in the race. I am, like I said, when my number goes above 160, I am looking to want to rest, to get that number down. I think my threshold heart rate is probably like 152, low 150s or so. So what I'm doing in terms of my own strategy at this point is I don't want to miss, to just sit on the back. And I had a couple of reasons for this. One is that I didn't want the guys to see me on the back and not taking pulls and then try to drop me. So maybe in their mercy, they will let me just sit on this group and stay together as long as possible, and maybe I can be in the top 5 here. On the other hand, who knows? There's a small chance maybe I could get on the podium, which would be a miracle for me because I've never been on the podium in this kind of level of racing. So I'm motivated to want to stay in this breakaway. And of course, the other reason is I'm the only team member who's in the breakaway, and the worst thing you can do for your team is to get in the breakaway and get dropped from the breakaway. So had I been leading the instructions for the team at this point, I would have suggested to my team that they consider this breakaway to not contain me. In other words, that they should race from the back like they don't have someone in the breakaway. Meaning that I would not be offended at all if they were to try to bring the breakaway back and reshuffle the cards. Because they know that my chances to really do well in this breakaway, especially with the 2 cadence guys. So the Giant Lakeside guys. So they're the ones with the sort of light blue, the different shades of blue. This guy right in front of me. They're the 2 teammates that are particularly strong in this breakaway that would be heavily favored to go number 1 and number 2 in this race. And so I want to, one of them I think is in the top 5. I just actually looked this up today. One of them is ranked among the top 5 among the Cat 1s in Texas. So, me, a recent Cat 3 Masters guy who was just recently a Cat 4, I'm a little bit out of my league in this breakaway, and I think everyone knows that. So, getting back to the MPA, so what is my threshold? I haven't really discussed that. Your threshold changes in Xert over time based on decay, or you can set it up so that it doesn't decay, or decays very slowly. But I want to say that the official Xert reading for my threshold power would probably be like 285 watts. But that might be a little bit low because I haven't done any kind of FTP kind of testing for a long time. And so Armando, if he's listening to this, and hopefully he will listen to this, he's the guy that owns and developed Exert. He would definitely point out that you don't need to do FTP testing in the Exert system to determine what your FTP is, and that's one of the advantages of Exert because nobody likes FTP testing. You can see here that my MPA is now dipped below 900, and that means I continue to be hurting very badly. So 166 beats per minute for me, that is complete red zone. I am just hanging on by the skin of my teeth to stay in this breakaway, meaning that I am really on the edge of my fitness to stay in this breakaway. Anyway, what I was going to say about my FTP is I guess it's possible my real FTP is actually 290, maybe 300, somewhere in there is my, or maybe not, it's somewhere in the range of 280 to 300 probably. And so that gives you an idea when, I'm going 380, like right now, in the pace line. Of course, it's dipped down now for a moment, but when I'm going that hard, I'm going above my FTP and I am draining the sink. The water is draining out, even though we're not doing a lot of accelerations. So we're about, 19 minutes into this video, and foreshadowing again, which is already pointed out, I do get dropped from this breakaway. So the cooperation that you see evident in the breakaway, and see, look, this is David right here in front of me. He's looking at me like, are you going to come around? And I'm like, oh, I don't want to come around. I really don't want to come around, especially into the headwind when we turn left. But, again, I'm thinking I ought to turn around. And the other part of this is I don't want to be in like a breakaway for the first time in this race and automatically be known as the guy who didn't take any pulls in the breakaway, even though that was probably maybe my best move, other than the idea that they might just cooperate for a long time and keep the breakaway together. but there is one, theory here that maybe my best move would be to save my energy on the back and just try to respond to attacks. But that's not what I wanted to do. This is a weeknight training race. There's nothing particularly at stake. Not that there's really anything at stake, arguably for amateur racing, especially maybe for us older guys that have jobs to go to and potentially families and stuff. It's for the experience. And so I want the experience of being in this breakaway and being an active, contributing person in this breakaway, and see how those dynamics play out. So I want to see what the experience is like when I am at my limit, but contributing to the breakaway, at least pulling through. So if you've been paying attention to the power, you're seeing that when I get to the front, I'm not laying down the power. I'm just trying to pull through, get around, and then someone quickly come around me. I'm not driving the breakaway, and frankly, I don't have the energy to drive the breakaway. I am at my fitness limit, just staying in the breakaway. So pretty soon now, we're going to see some attacks. And the giant guys, Giant Lakeside, they decide that they do not want to keep this group of 5 together. Now, could they have very well stayed together a lot longer and dropped me later? Certainly they could. But they didn't want to. And so they do what they want. When they have superior fitness to dictate the terms of the race, they can do it how they want. And when you have 2 guys that are in 2 teammates that are in a breakaway of 5, and they're the guys with the best fitness in the breakaway, the strongest guys, well, that's a huge advantage. And what they really want is for those 2 to be riding away and for the other 3 of us to be behind. So there goes an attack. You can see my MPA is now below 900, and this means it is going to be very hard for me to respond to that. My heart rate's pegged at 166, 165. And it may sound like a lot of watts. You're like, wait a second, you're not going at 800 watts at this moment. Why don't you just use your power that's available? Well, one concept in Exert also is that when you actually deliver the power that is available to you, where, in other words, where your power that you're expending, that line coincides with the MPA, that is where you potentially have a fitness breakthrough. Meaning that the model is saying you can only do this much power, and when you put out that maximum power, you are either predicting what the model is saying you can do or potentially even exceeding it. And so if you exceed that model, the model will adjust after the race, and you'll have a recalculated fitness model. So there's another attack. So I'd gotten a little bit of rest. My MPA went to 1,000. It went up, so went above 800. And now my job is to catch on. So we're in the gutter here. The wind is sweeping from our right to our left, and not a lot of shelter from the wind. You can see that the Windsor rider behind me has been gapped, and the guy on the right here, well, from Giant Lakeside, he's not going to chase his teammate. He's not going to do any work. I'm not going to do any work because I don't have any energy to do any work. And David up here is thinking, who else is going to work and chase down this guy? He looks back and sees me and says, oh, he's not going to do anything. And he decides to put in an effort here. And so what is my MPA doing? See, right here, my MPA is falling quite rapidly. It's going down. It's now below 1,000. And I'm getting a little bit of shelter here because he's not guttering me at this point. I am in the crosswind, wind coming from the left to the right, and I'm getting some shelter. And, the Giant Lakeside rider up there has looked up a little bit. He's looked back, so he's turned off the gas. I'm actually going to the front, doing a little bit of work now that David has put in some efforts to try to bring this guy back. And so there, the Giant Lakeside goes again. My job is to catch back on this wheel. They're trying to get a breakaway of 2 people. David goes past him. The Windsor rider, who was behind me and seemed to be in trouble, is now in front of me and giving me some shelter from the wind. He's recovered, so he's riding his own pace. If he gets gapped, he's just going to keep it steady and keep back on. So, again, foreshadowing, he does not get dropped. I do. Even though it looked like he was struggling so much, why was I the person to get dropped and not him? So maybe that's mental, maybe that's tactics. It may be tactics. And even here, now he's, going ahead of us. And so I don't really, know his physiology that well, so I can't really speak to what played into tactics for him versus whether he was at his limit. I talked to him a little bit after the race, and he said that he was almost dropped. He was right at the ragged edge, but he was able to stay on in the breakaway, or what was remained of the breakaway eventually, as we'll see. Um, and so these accelerations are taking their toll when I have to catch back onto wheels. As I have already said, my heart rate has been pegged for a long time, and I am struggling to stay, to feel like I have anything left in the bank. So part of this is mental too. It's very frustrating to get dropped from a breakaway. If you've never had that experience, it really sucks. Even if you're in a breakaway that's over your head, you just feel like, did I mentally give up? Did I really put in all the effort that I could? What if I had just made one more acceleration and caught a wheel? If I'm tired, maybe they're really tired. Okay, so there goes another attack. And again, here's me having to put some watts. So you can see that temporarily got up to about 700 watts. And as such, my MPA on up there is rapidly falling, going above 1,000, and you can see that dynamic number changing. Now, am I looking at my Garmin all the time when I'm in a race? No. I occasionally glance down and quickly gather, a couple of numbers. In this case, power, MPA, and maybe heart rate. And so, when you see guys swerving left and right over the road, you can't be just staring Chris Froome style at your Garmin. You've got to really be aware of what's going on the road. I've seen a lot of crashes that happened in breakaways, and part of that is this unanticipated, kind of unexpected movements that people do to get in and out of the wind. So here we have another attack, and David, super strong, the guy in the yellow kit, he's chasing again, and I lost the wheel. Now I'm chasing, but I'm in the wind, and I'm going into the crosswind now, and this hurts. So that was a mistake, right? I should have been more prepared, more ready. And now I've had to pay a price of using more energy. So you can see my MPA has fallen a ton. I am now at 735 watts available, meaning that's all the power. I'm almost at half power right now. And I had a little bit of extra speed here, so 0 watts. I'm trying not to pedal, and there goes another attack. So again, I don't have enough power available to respond. Or at least I don't think I do. But I've responded so late that now I am in the wind again, and I'm having to cover this in the wind, and so this is again hurting me. My MPA continues to fall. I mentioned the rider that uses Exert on his Garmin in his races, and that 600 is a real trouble mark for him. You can see that I'm now in the 600s in terms of my MPA. There goes another attack, and so again, I'm going to be on this wheel, try to stay on. I'm guttered right now. They're riding on the right side. Giant Lakeside's guttering us. David is giving me a little bit of space here to get a little bit of a draft, whether on purpose or not, I'm not sure. But he's looking. No, at this point, he turns to me and he says, "Somebody else has got to do some chasing." And I tell him, "I can't. I don't have anything." Now, I don't know if that's good strategy to tell your people you're racing against that you don't have anything. Maybe if I was playing cat and mouse and I did have something and I was lying, that'd be one thing. But I wasn't. I was telling him I don't have anything, and uh, um, but on the other hand, I kind of wonder if that played into my psychology, where I just kind of gave up too. I don't know. I don't think I gave up. I felt like I didn't have, you know, you had just seen that my MPA had gone into the 600, so that was the most tired I'd been so far during this race. The least amount of energy I had to go above threshold, and now I'm totally going into a headwind. You can see that the Windsor rider in the black kit that was kind of drifting off the back a lot of the time, he made that junction. He was able to respond to that attack, and I just wasn't able to respond to that attack. I wasn't able to stay right on the wheels, and now I'm in trouble. So I just fast forwarded there. I think it's been about 8 minutes or so, and a rider has gone off the front of the chase, and so I'm in between those four guys up the road and the chase, the field that's behind us. And so what I had decided to do was slow down and just drift back to the field, because I didn't feel like I could hold the gap, even though it was a pretty substantial gap. It might have been, I don't know, it might have been like a 2-minute gap. I don't know, minute and a half. I have no idea. I wasn't getting updates on that. Just trying to stay on. And so this guy's a very strong rider, know him very well. I wasn't really sure what his tactics were. You can see up there on the left, my MPA is now returned to not full levels, because full levels is like 1240 watts, but I'm at 1182, which means that I have most of my reserves. My sink is mostly full of water now, and so yeah, I'm not doing much work here. I've been really trying to rest and recover, waiting for the field to catch up. I wasn't sure what the tactics were for Sam there, the rider, because I didn't think there was any way we could catch the group ahead, and I was tired. So the two guys past there are actually two teammates of ours. So the orange is my teammate, and the guy in the black kit is Sam's teammate. So this looks like an ideal opportunity to be number 5, 6, 7, and 8 on the road, and we'd be motivated to work together, the four of us, because we both have two guys in this small group, and so again, I'm going above threshold here. We're trying to catch back on over 400 watts, and my MPA will be falling. But I'm nowhere near the fatigue I had, when I went through this section on the last lap when I was dropped, where my MPA was in the 600s. So I guess we didn't have enough momentum. Me and Sam didn't pull through. The other guy in Windsor didn't pull through, and so now we're caught by the field, and we're in the field. And now I'm just going to sit on and wait till the end. And so later on, the group will split again. The field will split. And I wasn't really sure what the tactics were for that. I stayed in the back. I was kind of looking at my team leader to kind of figure out what the tactics were, but it turned out he was not feeling well. I didn't know he wasn't feeling well. We had one of our teammates up the road, and when the field split, he went in the group ahead, so we had a guy. Anyway, so I just stayed in the back, and so this is what's remaining of the guys in the back, and this is the last lap. So I just wanted to show here, I've been resting for quite a while now, so my MPA is 1239, which is essentially maximum power. And I want to maximize my finish in this sprint finish. So, what we are racing here now for is 9th place. The person who finishes first in this group will be 9th place. And my teammate is on the front here. He's in the white and orange kit. And he's just trying to put in a fast lead out, keep the pace relatively high. And this may benefit me in the sprint. In particular, in this sprint, the guy I know who's a very good sprinter is the guy in the Windsor kit, which is 2 bikes ahead of me in the black, not the black and yellow right ahead of me, but the black kit with the blue helmet. So John's put in his pull. Guy in front of me gets gapped. I've got to cover that. And this guy who's right in front of me now, he's the sprinter that I'm going to try to stick on his wheel and if I have any luck, I'll try to beat him. But I do know he's an excellent masters sprinter. And the guy in front of him is very strong. So he actually put in a much earlier attack than most people do, with about a third lap to go. And we're going to take this left, and the finish line will be up there. So it'd be very hard for him to hold this. He's an excellent, very fast racer. He led us out, and I'm on the Windsor guy here, trying to stay on his wheel. I try to go around. I just don't have enough to go around. You can see that my MPA is falling rapidly, and almost coincides there in terms of the power I'm putting out. So that's an introduction to Exert, and I hope you found this interesting in terms of looking at Exert in the context of a race. I may do this again. I'll do this again so that you can kind of see what this is like. Anyway, that's all I got. Hope you enjoyed it, and let me know if you'd like more, and if you like this kind of thing, consider subscribing, and giving any comments or ask any questions you have below. Thanks. Bye.